Spawn On Me is the premier podcast spotlighting people of color. Every week, we talk news, what we've been playing, and tell you who's invited to the cookout. Our show is all about talking about gaming through a prism of blackness because we are the culture. Welcome to Chicago, y'all.
Yo, what's good, everybody in Chicago? This is Khalif here. This is the Spawn On Me podcast with Khalif Adams, and this is episode 554 of our show. Welcome to the new folks, and shout out to all the old folks for coming through, rocking with us this week and every week on the podcast. Go check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. We are everywhere where content happens and nowhere at the same time. We are in the multiverse of dopeness in all times, at all places. This week, we have a really fun and fantastic interview with somebody who I know and love and someone who I think is completely brilliant in everything that she does. Victoria Tran from Inner Sloth is going to be joining us this week to talk about her new book, Mastering Community Management. And it is a really good conversation because it really brings a lot of stuff together that I am thinking about in my role. I know a lot of folks in the space who do this work I've also been thinking about. And if you want to learn about this stuff, there's no one better than Victoria than anybody else on the planet. She is brilliant in all the ways possible. So go check out the interview. Go check out all the goodness there. And then after the interview, we're going to talk a little bit and get up out of here for this episode of 554. Go check it out, listen to it, and we'll have more right after this. What's good, everybody in Chicago? This is Khalif here. We have another dope interview with somebody who I am so excited to have on the show. Returning guest, returning champion to Spawn On Me, one of my favorite people in the industry, Victoria Tran, coming to us, communications director from Inner Sloth, and writer, author, and maker and creator of Mastering Community Management. Hey, this is so dope to have you on the show. Victoria, so much to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. How you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I wasn't expecting that transition to the book. So I was like, technology. Oh my God.
We only bust out the cute graphics for the dope people. We got to make sure it looks good for everybody at home. And again, I am so excited, proud, and honored that you would be here, and proud of you for continuing to do this amazing work. All of those words I mean from the bottom of my heart. You have been one of the best people to talk to about this work as a person who's doing this work. So again, thank you for being here. The big question is, you've been doing this work for a while. What was the impetus to write a book about community management and how to really do that job well?
God, yeah. So I may have underestimated how easy it is to write a book or how hard it is to write a book. But I was approached by my editor to write a book about community management. And I've always kind of wanted to do one because there's a lot of great resources out there. But as you probably know, especially if you're just starting out, it can be hard to know, where do you even start? There's so many resources out there. So I wanted to create a book, one, just because there would be way more structure when it came to because that's the way the book is structured. It's what is community management? What do you do during pre-production? What do you do during production, launch, post-launch? And it also allows me to go way more in depth than I normally could in an online article or a blog or a newsletter, which I usually do. So I just thought it would be fun. And then obviously, yeah, it was much harder than I thought. But we got through it. Much like making a game, I was like, surely this will only take a little while. And it really took a long time.
I mean, the beauty of it too, because I got my copy this morning. I snagged a copy and started to thumb through it to kind of poke through for our chat today. And what I love about what you've done is you've really brought out and given a blueprint to folks like us who are doing that work. And again, you're doing this work as well. So it's seeing the fruits of your labor be reinforced through the lineage of all of us kind of walking through this space and figuring it out. But what I love is the fact that it does really give you all the nuts and bolts. If you want to go through and you're I'm a newbie at strategy, I'm a newbie at kind of understanding the impetus and what is the kind of underlying foundation of what community management is, you can read this book and have a really good understanding of what that is. While doing this work and kind of writing the book, did you go back to some of your own practices and say, oh, I need to tweak that a little bit because things have changed, or I've learned a ton much more about, the space and how things are moving. What were the learnings that you found for yourself while writing this book and bringing it to the market?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question because I think it's one of those things where one, you don't know how much you know until you have to write it down and try to teach someone else, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a whole different skill for sure. But also just like how jumbled everything is. Like I realized again, because I was trying to put it in like sections of like pre-production, production, launch, post-launch, I was like, where does this go? Like and because, community management work can kind of span throughout like all stages of game development, it was actually a little bit interesting and difficult to try to plot these in places, but also because the book has like a lot of activities, because I don't think the way that I do things necessarily is like the best way for every single game and every single studio. So having activities there and trying to think like, okay, like this is the way that I do it. But actually, if someone were trying to apply it to like, I don't know, let's say I've never really worked on like a true like jump scare horror game. Like how could they work with this and how can they think about this, and having to kind of get outside of my own expertise and think about that and like analyze what other people have done was really cool, actually.
Yeah. While going through it, there were nuggets of just like awesome information and great advice. And, I love how even in the beginning of the book, you talk about what is kind of the role of community management and the higher ups in those companies, the C-suite folks, to kind of treat the internet well, right? To give it a good space to think about not only, again, we're doing things for fun, like games should be fun. We should be finding good ways to have fun with this work. But the internet and the outside world has gotten a lot more terse. It's gotten a lot more problematic. It's gotten a lot more full of all the isms that we don't like. But it is a thing that we can do to kind of help push back against some of that stuff with the work that we get a chance to do. How important has it been for you to figure out while writing this book of like, how much do you give to folks to give them good guidance without scaring them the hell off? Because I know that that's a part of it too, where like, I have a problem sometimes when people are like, hey, how do you get into this work? I would usually say QA is a great space, community management is a good space. And now I'm having a little bit of trouble even recommending that for people who are just trying to get into the space because it's become so toxic. What are your thoughts about how this book is kind of balancing that, right? Of giving good information while also giving newbies some potential hope, or even veterans some potential hope to keep going.
Yeah, I think that's interesting in the sense that like I kind of approach it, and sorry, are we specifically talking about just like the getting into community management, like the industry being toxic in the sense that community management, you have to deal with a lot of toxic players, or like the industry being kind of on fire right now?
Version 1. Version 2 is a whole other show.
I was like, wait, I guess there's two ways this could go. Yeah, no, I think it is. The mental health of like community managers is always something I think that people or us in the industry try to think about like a lot, but it's really hard to convey that, I think, through text. I think it's similar to, I don't know, if I had to think of an analogy, it's like, if you had a teenage daughter and you're like, oh, that boy is bad for you, and she's trying to date someone, she's like, you don't know me, I can definitely handle this. And then, sometimes you kind of just have to let people live through it and like figure it out. So it's less me being like, hey, if you can't handle it, like don't do it or something. It's more like, hey, these things are probably going to happen. If they happen, here's the things that you need to think about to hopefully like, keep yourself safe, hopefully keep your mental health like in check, and all the kind of warning signs. And it's kind of up to you to decide if this is right for you, because it's really hard, honestly, to talk about the deluge of comments and, toxicity that you can face on the internet. And also because people are weird, and people who do terrible things can post really specifically horrible things that I haven't even seen before, or I'm sure like you've seen things I haven't seen. I've seen things you haven't seen. And so while it's hard to necessarily like strictly be like, hey, these are the things you should expect, it's like something is going to happen. When this thing happens, here's how you can deal with it. And also here's how you can proactively try to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, it's the seeing of the things is the, having lots of conversations with folks this past week over, my wants for understandings of what the industry is doing and pivots in and out of my role and then this stuff. It makes you really think of just like, you've seen every permutation almost of the negative stuff, and then you get a chance to see some of the really great positive things that come out of this work. Talk to me a little bit about how in the book you've talked about the positive layers of this role, because I think this work is again, we've talked about how hard it is, and it can definitely add some years to your life in ways that you didn't expect. But I think at the end of it is again like a kind of great position to be in, where you're at the forefront of potential joy, right? You get a chance to kind of see really good things happen for folks, or inside the team and outside of it. Talk to me a little bit about what your experiences have been. Of course, with Among Us has been brilliant in the work you all have done at Innersloth. But what are some of those great moments that you've seen that kind of come to mind when you think about the work and how that kind of translates into what you've added into the book?
So many things. And I think that's the beauty of, as you said, like community management, is like you get to be at the forefront of the joy of so many people. Like so many people get excited about the games. The developers are excited. The players are excited. Like whether it's fan art, whether it's like a really nice comment, a wedding invite. We've gotten several wedding invites from like people who've played Among Us and like met people because, they were in the same groups playing together years ago. Yeah. That's always very exciting. I have not attended a wedding of people yet, but I'm looking at them. I think it's honestly, it's not even just being able to like receive and see these things, but it's also being able to like actively contribute and participate in them. It's like you're basically a fan of the studio, of the game, and you get to be paid to be a part of that and to help create content and help shape the culture around it. And I think now, especially because players are getting more and more used to community managers and the role that they play in, it's like they really do appreciate that. And they will, it's always fun to see when someone's like, give this, like, when you post like a stupid meme and someone's like, give this person a raise, you're like, thank you.
Yeah.
We did do that. Thank you. I don't know. It's just, I think at the end of the day, like, the reason I love this job so much is because, like, people will create amazing games, thoughtful games, weird games, beautiful games, horrifying games, but you can never just defeat the randomness of the human mind on the internet. Like a commenter coming in and like making a joke or like creating something weird and wacky. It's like you never know what they're going to do with it. They're like a sense of random that you just can't find anywhere else. And I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, I love that, because I think I'm trying to figure that part out too. I think in my best days, I'm like, wow, the internet is a beautiful place. And on my worst days, I'm like, I just want everyone to go into the bunker and close the door. Like, I'm like, close the vault. like, 100%. Yeah, like, but I think what I love about what you shared is it is that randomness, but it's also like, and I think you dig a little bit into this. And again, I haven't read the full book. I'm poking through it while getting ready for this. And again, this is going to be my Bible for a lot of the things that I do for a while. But like, talk to me about the human psychology parts of it, because I feel like there are layers of that are fascinating. Because yes, the randomness is there, but also what I love about what you talk about is not only figuring out who your players are and what you want your community to be, but kind of taking audit in having space to figure out, like, who are the players that we actually want to play our games? How are we talking to them? Who are the personas that we wind up coming across during this work? Talk to me a little bit about what those layers look like for you at this point, not only from the work you're doing at Innersloth, but kind of as a person who's giving advice to other folks who are doing this work.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think what makes a successful community manager, but also communicator in general, right? It's just curiosity. Being able to see like, hey, if we're making this game in this genre, like who are people, like what are people in this genre already talking about? Like, what do they want? What are they confused about? What are they really excited about? How do they talk to each other, right? So I usually, when I think about this, how I talked back in my previous job with Kit Fox Games about our game Boyfriend Dungeon, which was like a dating sim dungeon crawler, versus how I had to talk to the Dwarf Fortress fans and players, which, you know, are like a whole other whole other group of people. And how I could kind of shift my communication and shift my wording and really figure out like, oh, like these are the things that excite them, these are the things that really connect them, but also like how can I mesh them together, because I'm working with the both of them, right? And I don't, not necessarily that they have to cross over and play like both games or whatever, but I'm still the person that's kind of trying to weave the thread between them.
Sure.
So when it comes to that, I think whatever it is that we do, like curiosity at the core of it is how you figure out like all the personas, how you figure out the language, how you figure out, even if you're not a fan of the game that you're working on, which sometimes can happen, especially if you work in like a publishing space and you work with multiple different games. It makes sense if you don't love all the games you're working on. But how do you still find that joy? How do you still find that connection with people that you might not necessarily like share the same interests with day to day?
I like that, because that's a thing that I've heard across a lot of folks who I know who are doing this work, right? Like they are extremely passionate about the work. Like they love to have those moments where they can, again, surface fun and be good arbiters and good kind of vessels for those conversations for the company that they're working for, or if they're doing it independently of doing that work. But it also is really cool to hear you talk about just like, you don't necessarily have to be the kind of like super gamer for that genre, for that title, for those things to be able to do the work well. It sounds like there are some just underlying personality traits and ideas and philosophies that really lend to good community management. What are some of the things that you think are kind of the most important kind of structures or things to have in yourself to be able to go into a role like this, to say, maybe this is something that I would want to try out. Maybe this is something for me.
Yeah, I mean, number one, like I just said, is like that curiosity. I think that takes people so far, and not just like curiosity of like how people talk or anything, but again, like when you get those angry comments or you get those kind of snide remarks, sometimes you have to tackle it of an angle of like, why are you like this? And not in like a judgmental, like not necessarily in a judgmental way, right? It's just like, what's happening here? Like, is it kind of valid and you're just, you know, communicating it in a really shitty way? Is it that maybe it's just a cultural thing and you don't actually realize like, oh, like this means sort of a certain tone is like implied with it. Is it something else? So I always say like curiosity, number one, like 100%. I do talk a lot about writing in the book, and like, okay, look, I'm kind of biased because obviously I be writing a lot. But if you're a community manager, you also will be writing, and it's not just like haha funny memes. It's also devlogs. It's reading like Jira tickets and be like, what does this mean? And how do I translate this into like normal person speak so people understand what like you're trying to say? I think that is a really huge skill. And there's so many other things, but I think, is this a personality trait? We'll see. You have to be okay with just failing sometimes. I think a lot of people will like come to me and be like, how did you come to do like what you do? And like, it looks like a lot of the time, like what I do is quite successful in their eyes. And this is me trying not to brag. And I'm like, oh, it hurts.
You can brag.
No.
How do you bully someone into bragging about themselves?
I know.
Brag about yourself. Victoria. You can do. You do dumb stuff. God damn it. Anyway. Anywho.
Anyways, yes. Okay, I will. But yeah, they seem like success, and like, they're curious about it. And honestly, a lot of it is just that I have tried a lot of things that have like been huge L's. Just totally, it's terrible. Like like no one saw it, or like I tried it and it was like it flopped. And that's kind of how social media, community management, communication works. Like you're gonna fail quite a bit, and especially if you're just starting out and you have that ability to fail because no one's like paying huge attention to it. That's great. That's an amazing way to like just practice, because there's no way to actually just get into this and be automatically perfect. You have to make like you have to practice. I'm sure like if you go back to like really old Spawn on Me episodes something, right? You're just like, oh, why did I do that? That's terrible. But the beauty of it is that you improve, and you have to, in order to improve, you have to do the work, and you have to fail and stumble a bunch of times. And that's how I feel anyway about improving in terms of community management.
I'm sure. I mean, I'll probably mess up during this episode and figure it out and keep going. But what I love about what you just said, because I think there's so many tidbits that I think just really hit for me right there. It's just like, I don't think a lot of folks who are on the outside understand the translation that you have to employ as a person, because you get like the overarching umbrella too, and you can speak to this, is our community managers a part of the dev team? Are community managers part of the marketing team? Are you a hybrid of some of that stuff? Are you familiar with developer speak in a way that you've been able to incorporate into your own language to understand what it is to give good feedback to the team? How much have you had to learn in those respects? Because I think like the understanding from a person who's working in that space, in your work, if you're working at a studio or working remote, doing that work often, you're having a lot of conversations with the dev team to kind of figure that stuff out. But fans and players don't necessarily know how to give good feedback that gets to translate directly to the team in an easy way. How has it been learning how to be the liaison in that way, being that translation layer between those two groups?
It's interesting. So I think I don't think you necessarily need to know like how to program in order to be able to talk to programmers, right? But you do need to have some sort of, again, there's where that curiosity, the kind of like communication part comes in. You have to like listen in and be like, okay, what are the ways that you can talk to people that matters to them, right? So like the way I can describe this is like some people are very numbers oriented, and that's just how their mind works. So if I'm trying to like pitch an idea for a campaign, I'll try to like frame it in numbers, or like maybe the severity of a bug. I'll be like, hey, this is like roughly 5% of the players, or creating like a severity matrix where like S tier is like, you got to drop everything and work on this right now, in my opinion.
Sure.
Or A is like, maybe like really look into this, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of creating those frameworks and taking charge of creating those frameworks, because again, like a lot of people, they're focused on their own roles and stuff, and you're kind of there as the communicator, as the in-between, to create something that people can more instantaneously like recognize and have it click in their head. I think I just forgot the original question.
No, it's basically just like how to be that translator for between players and the dev team, right? Because you're constantly getting feedback from players, and some of that is good feedback, some of it is not. And some of it is usable, some of it is not. Or even actionable. Like some of it you just can't, like, well, that was great that you just said that. There's nothing I can do about that. How do you balance those things out in that work, and what have you learned in that respect? So that's the main thrust of that question. But, and you answered it, so you nailed it anyway. But the other layer of that is, I'm curious to hear, and you touch on this in the book, about like the way social media is a moving target, and it's consistently and constantly changing and moving and morphing into various things that we've seen. How is it, and how are you talking about that in the book for a very strategic way for folks to kind of learn where you should be, how you kind of manage those things. Those platforms are vastly different in the ways that the expectations are for the players or for the people who are there. Talk to me a little bit about the way and your kind of thoughts about where we currently are in the social media space and how is that either beneficial or detrimental to the work.
Gosh, yeah. While I was writing this book, like Twitter became X or whatever, TikTok shut down in the US for like 24 hours. I remember distinctly at multiple periods of writing this book, I was like, oh, okay. I hope nothing happens by the time this comes out. Oh my God. So it'd be a little wild. It'd be a little chaotic right now in the social media space.
Yeah.
And it always kind of is, right? And I think I'm a little bit, it happens. Like I was there when like Tumblr, it was having it blew up and then kind of crashed, and then MySpace disappeared and other things happened. But all that to say is that the interesting thing about all these things shutting down and changing and coming up is that the core of it never quite changes, in the sense like, it has to be either text-based, it has to be either video-based, it has to be either image-based, right? And so there's some core aspects there that I talk about where it's like, you still need to have a good hook, you still need to have some like quick and snappy text, because it's not usually a social media site where it's like, now it's live journal and everyone wants to read essays. No, you still got to have your snappy text. You still got to be able to write really well. You need to know how to edit like an image so that it's funny or like relatable according to whatever is hot at the time. But other things that you can kind of sense, especially when it comes to algorithms, one is always like testing, right? You're always practicing the same thing of like, you're taking an L because your video got 10 views, but maybe this other video got 20 views. And like, why did that one get 20 views? Usually when it comes to social media platforms, they will often give you hints into what they are trying to push and what they are trying to do at the time, right? So when Instagram releases a new feature, like, I don't know, Instagram Shop, or I think they just released a repost feature, you can probably bet that somewhere in the back end, they're trying to like push that because they want to see that it works. They want to see people using it and they're hyping it up. So there might be more incentive for you as a studio or as a brand to kind of play on that and to like try and test it out. It's similar to when TikTok Live became a thing. Then they probably wanted more people to try out TikTok Live. This doesn't mean that it's going to become successful and your thing, but it might be a really good way to be like, okay, I see the ways that these companies are trying to think and, trying to take up more of people's time. How do I leverage that for my own strategy?
That is the biggest truth bomb of all, because it is so hard to figure out. I mean, the thing that I also struggle with is, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this, and I'm sure this has changed even in the times you've been doing this work, is it feels like the attention span now is like bumblebee size now. It's like the ability, like we're all in a bowl full of goldfish now. And I'm like, yo, how do you keep people engaged with what you want to do when we have more games than ever? We have more things vying for your attention. We have more things kind of pulling from that. When you're kind of getting ready to put out a banger post, you're like, this joint is going to be good. I know this one is going to be good. Are you bouncing that off other team members? Is that kind of just like in your purview and in your mind and being like, let me let this cook and then, give this to some other people and let them see if they kind of get it and see if that fits? Or is it something where you're kind of like locked in the room and being like, I know I got some goodies here. And if they hit, they hit. And if they don't, they don't. Talk to me a little about your process now and how that kind of feeds through the thought process of making the book and being like, here's what I know, here's what we don't know, and here's the maybe part that is kind of where everything winds up lying. Where do you kind of balance that out?
Well, as any social media person knows, when you think of a really good concept and you work really hard on it and you post it, it'll get no views. And then you post something that you just thought of 5 seconds ago and it goes mega viral.
Oh, why is it like this?
I don't know. It's like a mystery of the world or something. It's the worst, but also the best.
I guess once you, yeah, right? Like you're like that, because then it makes you like, I'm real smart. Like I know things. Yeah. Right? You feel yourself. You're like, yeah, I did that thing. But you talked a little bit about the testing layers and capturing what that data was. And I think data is a really important part, especially if you're a person doing this work and you're having to report up to a manager or someone else or another decision maker within the company to figure that stuff out. But often those folks are not the most internet savvy. Those folks they're not in the meme space in the ways that we usually are. How are you translating what those wins are to those folks in good ways, and how are you then capturing that data for replication, if you kind of want to call it that, right? It's like you never know if a thing is going to pop off in the way you want it to, but there are some good nuggets there. How are you tracking all of those parts, and what are some of the ways you're looking at how you convey those things to other people to say, so remember that time that we did that thing? It worked, and we should probably do it again. How are you doing that?
Yeah, so now that some time has passed, I do want to give a little shout out to like my community team, which helped me gather all this data. It's like not just me anymore.
Yeah.
Thank God. Thank God. So what makes it easier is definitely like, one, we have sentiment reports, and I talk about this in the book, but that's basically a conglomeration of like the things people are talking about on social, on reviews, Discord, wherever that are the bots can scrape that basically create like, okay, like depending on your parameters, like this is how people are feeling about the latest update. Here's a summary, here's a percentage of like, if people are talking about like a cosmetic, like let's say it takes up 10% of the chatter from this monthly time period, and that's really good for us because like, wow, it's up by, I don't know, who knows, 2%. And here's all the quotes and comments about it, and here's the requests people have, here's some of the negative things that people have. So having a really nice summary that isn't too bloated, I find, is the best, especially when it comes to C-suite, because they're so busy and they don't have much time to read through things. So you want to just give them a really quick glance of everything that has happened. And then within our community team ourselves, like we do monthly social like KPI reviews, basically. So it's like, okay, so what are our top performing posts? What's our least performing post? English hard. What was the theme of it? What was was it funny? Was it just like a game update? What have we learned from this past month, considering like all of the posts that we've put out? What was the Discord saying? How are review numbers? It's all just like stuff like that, and paying attention to like, okay, like what actually did well and what didn't do well, because that can teach you a lot too.
Yeah, I think those are the things that I am always trying to figure out, like what's good data to roll up versus what's not, and trying to figure out like what does it mean in the grand scheme of where you are in the kind of timeline of the production of the game too, which I think changes so many different ideas of what that looks like. What's the easiest way that you found to get really good buy-in from folks on a team? Like, I think when we are, and especially when you're kind of working through the process of figuring out what your campaign is going to be in that moment, if initially you don't get that, like, yeah, we should go and rock it and do that was the thing. How do you kind of work around the, not necessarily negative feedback, the kind of tweaking of a campaign before it goes live to make sure, again, like the folks who are you're reporting to like get what the thrust of that thing is supposed to be? How do you work through that?
Yeah, this one is interesting because I've been in the pretty good and privileged position of being on teams that really just don't care and do not want to think about this at all. So they're like, whatever you want to do it. Don't tell me.
That's dope.
Don't just let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
Just be free. And I'm very lucky to have that kind of trust for sure. But when I'm trying to build up that trust, I like to over communicate and basically give that information upfront as much as possible. So when it comes to like maybe a campaign or a post that's like, a little bit more spicy or like weird, I'll just be like, hey, like, this is what I want to do. this is why I think we should do it. Here are the potential pitfalls that I am like brainstorming from it, but don't worry because I do have a plan for them. And it's very much like volunteering that information and not trying to like hide anything, because I think the more open and transparent you are about like, hey, I've like thought about this very thoroughly and I really want to do this. And if they come back and say no, and they're like, no, still not the vibe, then sort of trying to reel it back and be like, okay, if you don't want to do that exactly, can we do this? And keeping like basically just keeping inching backwards, foot in the door sort of deal.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like if it becomes kind of frustrating, because I totally get like some people fall into this where like I can't do anything. One of the things that I try to encourage people to do and that I have done myself is like, okay, like give your like pitch your thing, and then if the studio person is like, no, don't like that, then telling them, okay, like if you don't like that, that's okay. This is potentially what we are sacrificing, and making sure you have receipts. You're like, this is what might not happen for us, and that doesn't align with the goal that you gave me before of wanting to do this. And I will obviously try to sort out like a different way to go about it, but this is just my recommendation. And because at the end of the day, you know what? It's their studio, it's their game. It can be really frustrating, but as long as you communicate the consequences of their actions to them, or like the suggestions that you have, and they very explicitly say no, it's out of your hands, and you're like, all right, then that's not me.
It's not me, man. You gotta handle it on yourself. No, I feel you though. Like the ability to balance out ideation and ideas versus the kind of nuts and bolts of like what needs to happen is really difficult sometimes, of trying to figure that out. So it's good to hear you talk about the potentials of frustrations happening in that space. One thing I did love that spoke to me in huge ways and was like, thank God someone's talking about this, is the balance between the public brand and your own kind of visibility as a community manager. I've seen way too many CMs and social media managers get just rocked online because they previously had an online persona or a more public persona. And then, luckily not luckily, everybody's talented. Like, it's not luck. But like, you found yourself in a role where you are now working for a studio and doing most of that work. You've had a fair amount of that with the work that you've done of being more public in some of those spaces. And you talk about the balance of deciding to either really kind of be more public with your public base and online presence, while also being able to do this work and not have to worry about the mobs coming after you or trying to keep the mobs away. How has it been kind of transitioning through that process, right? Where, you've done that work, you've seen what it's like on both ends of it. Was there a moment that you can think of where you were like, all right, this is great and I love the visibility, but I might need to take a step back if I want my brain to keep wanting to function and not having to deal with all the angry mobs online? What was that process for you?
Oh gosh, yeah. This one was one that is actually quite, I don't know. I feel like not a lot of people do talk about it, so thank you for giving me the platform to do so.
Yes, please.
And I'm actually curious, like, also on your end, how you handle it, because I feel like you're even more online. You have spawned on me for 10 years, right? And all that kind of separation. But for me, it always, since I started, was very much about boundaries and not really minding a certain viewpoint of me online, right? Okay, so the better way to probably explain that is when you see my social media, I talk about games, I talk about work, I talk about like a little relatable, funny meme, but I'm actually very explicit about never talking about my hobbies. I don't. I don't know. Maybe I don't want someone to do this. Please don't do this. Don't like crawl through my history and see if I've ever posted about a hobby. But with luck, it's like the most that someone technically will know about me is that I love bubble tea, right?
Yep.
It's like, kind of pretty surface level things. And that's not to say that I'm like hiding an aspect of me. It's just like, this is my boundary. And in order for me to do my work and to continue being online, it's like, I am very explicit about not posting about certain aspects of my life, even though I get really tempted to like, I'll do a cool thing in my hobby. And obviously I'll talk to friends about it, or like I always can talk to you about it, right? But when it's just random posting online, I'm like, no, resist posting the cool picture. You cannot do that. And being very explicit about like, look, this isn't content farming for me, because when you work in social, right, like everything can be content. Every aspect of your life can be monetized if you try hard enough. So I have to actively work against that. And I think that separation is actually quite nice. I think, who is it? It was some quote from like Hank Green where he was like, oh, like not everything you see online is me, but not everything about me is online. And that's basically how I try to handle it in a similar fashion. And I think that's been great for my mental health. And everyone is different, obviously. And again, that's why I'm curious about like how you handle it, because it can be really difficult.
First, shout out to Hank Green. I love Hank Green. Hank Green is awesome. How am I handling it? Badly?
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think and this is where I get on the therapy couch. I'm like, all right, Victoria, listen to me.
Yeah, tell me how you feel. Where are you feeling this?
Well, I think for me it's been harder only because I started in one space and then transitioned into another. Like, anyone who's ever asked me about my hopes and dreams and goals, I've always wanted to work in the video game industry. I've always wanted to make games, or I wanted to be close to it or adjacent to it, and found myself after Spawn Me kind of started to pop off of being like, oh, there's an avenue here for me to be able to do that work. And I like to celebrate the fact that I've worked at different studios and have worked on some projects. Some of those projects have failed miserably, but like also some of those projects have been great and I've learned a lot. And I think as an advocate for hoping that other folks who really want to do this work can find a place to be in it, I've been more vocal about those things. But also, I'm a blabbermouth. Like, also, I talk a lot about
yap.
I yap a lot. I talk about stuff I like, and I talk about people who I love and people I like, and stuff. I try to keep my thirsty stuff off main, but it's like it happens. Sometimes it happens, and I'm a bad person in that respect. It's not great. And I'm sure it has probably cost me a job or two, but the answer is probably not great. But I love the fact that you've made that determination for yourself, and that's been advice that I've gotten from a lot of folks as well who have been doing more public work. Is like some stuff you got to keep offline, and some things you got to keep to yourself. But like the process has been ever evolving, and I think I'm learning when to jump into the fray and when not to jump into the fray even more than I used to before. But I was in that fire way too early. Like that's when because there's been a moment in your life when you didn't know how to use social properly.
Oh yeah.
You were just tweeting willy-nilly, following 7,000 people. I can't even get my number down at this point without wanting to cry. I'm like, all right, I just got to delete everybody that I'm following and just restart. But it has been good to hear advice like that, which has been good to be able to pull that away. I do want to talk about one thing that I think is really interesting, and I think you talk a little bit about this in the book, is the versions and learnings of ideation, right? I think the ability to absorb and digest a whole bunch of things that you're seeing, because I think, would you ascribe to the label of kind of being permanently online, like being online all the time is a thing?
Yeah.
I mean, like, because some of that is like part of the work, and then some of that is like part of our personalities. Are like, I want to know, I want to see the things. But I am also in a space where I'm like, when I'm looking for inspiration, I'm losing the ability to find it because things have changed a lot in the ways that online content works. Or I don't know if you feel this way, but sometimes the vibe is the vibe, and when the vibe doesn't hit, it kind of dissipates the ability to kind of create. And you're looking for that nugget of inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think that changes a lot through how much you're online, age. I mean, I'm starting to feel like I'm getting to be the old person in the room sometimes, and that sucks. But talk to me a little bit about like how you and your team are kind of sourcing for inspiration, even when it doesn't feel like the vibe is right. Like it feels like the vibe is off. How are you kind of pulling good things together to make fun stuff?
You know, when has the vibe ever not been off at this point?
I love it so much.
Oh gosh, yeah. 2025 having an off vibe.
The vibe is in the toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think when it comes to that, this is where like and I hate it. I hate it when people are right sometimes, when they're like, you need an offline hobby. You need to go exercise. I'm like, sure I do. And then I do. And I'm like, oh, it was amazing.
It worked. God dang it.
It worked. I touched grass and suddenly I'm full of inspiration and vibes or whatever. That can happen. So that's like the baseline, I would say, for when the vibes feel off. As a chronically online person, maybe you actually do need to just get offline.
Yeah.
So that is very important. I think also, if you are able to, and this doesn't have to be like you have another community manager on the team necessarily. Like I'm very lucky that I do. So now I can bounce ideas off of them. Yeah. But like if an art person on the team or someone on the team like kind of has, and hopefully they will, because you're all working on a team, has some sort of like meme vibe that honestly can be very helpful to just throw something to, similar to how like programmers will like rubber duck something when they're programming in order to find like a bug. Sometimes I'll literally just do that. Like way back when I was working and it was just like us four at Innersloth, I'd like message the CEO and be like, throw the image in the chat and be like, type up a bunch of different ideas for the copy and be like, which one's funny? And then he'll be like, this one. I'll be like, oh, maybe like if I do this, this, and this. And it like helps to just be able to talk it out, because I think community managers can often feel quite isolated especially if you're the only community manager, but it doesn't really have to be that way. Like the beauty of it, again, of working in indie studios, often you can be quite you can do cross-functional team things, and having sort of a little brainstorming session can be really nice. But also, if the vibes are off, sometimes it's okay to just be like, look, today might not be a posting day. I have a incredibly messy draft of ideas and tweets and like comments or like things that I just look at later on. Like if I get any idea and it's not the right time for it, I'll just throw it in there half baked. And then once I'm in a space of like, I really just can't think of anything, I'll look through all of that and be like, oh, pick out some like favorites and be like, oh, I can actually just work with this. And it might not be my best at the time, but it is something where I'm like, it has a little bit of a cool factor to it.
I'm happy you said that, because I think in many places that I've worked, I've been the taskmaster on that thing. I've been the person who's been like, this is your role and this is what you got to do. So then you have like extra pressure to be like, I have to be funny and smart and witty and figure out all these things. And we need to post 4 times a day. And it needs to be this. And I'm like, no one wants that in a real way. You kind of do, but you kind of don't. So it's like trying to figure out how to balance out your expectations and the company's expectations of what they believe social to be and what they see from other companies doing, and being like, well, why don't we have that sexy thing? Because I was like, because we only have one person doing this thing and they don't know how to use Photoshop. Maybe like there's a bunch of reasons why things like I know how to use Photoshop. That's not me saying that, but like but like there's resources. Exposed. Yeah, I know. I told on myself. Oh shit, Microsoft Paint. Yay. Anyway, but like there is that expectation of you being the kind of like sole person, if you don't have a team, to be the ideation layer, to be the creation layer, and then wearing multiple hats alongside of that now. That's refreshing to hear that's like the way you're thinking about that in those ways. I got one more question for you because we run out of time. This was magical. It was so fast.
Oh wow, yeah, it went by really fast.
Went by super fast.
Talk.
Yes, that's the reason why I love having you on the show. I can keep you on here for like 2 hours and we would still never finish all the stuff that we talked about. At this point, you've had a ton of success. You've had a lot of really goodwill. You've been doing lots of fantastic stuff, talking on BBC and talking all these cool places and talking about all the wonderful work you've been able to do. And now this wonderful book is out. After being a vet in the space now for how long you been doing this work now? It's got to be at least, what, 10 years, 12 years, something like that?
No, it's only, I mean, I think I started in 2017.
Really?
So almost 10 years.
Yeah, it's almost 10 years. What is your favorite part of the work at this point? What's the thing that when you get up and you're like, man, this is dope, I get a chance to do this. What's your favorite part?
Being on the Spawn on Me podcast.
Don't you make me blush out here? Ah! No, you're the best. You're the best. Also, that's a lie. That's a lie. Whatever. Get out of here with that business.
No. But honestly, though, it is just like look, I'm nosy.
Yes.
I love knowing things,
I love it.
right? Like, and that's community. You get to be a part of so many different spaces. You get to talk to the developers on all different teams. You get to see what is going on in the game space. And it really, at the end of the day, like, as cheesy as it sounds, like, the best part of the job is the fact that you get to connect with so many different people, whether that's players, whether that's developers, whether that's PR people, whether that's influencers. And, we can complain and be like, oh, this is like several different jobs at once. But at the same time, I kind of love it because I'm like, I get to know all these like really cool people and they're all amazing and they're all really passionate about what they're doing. And I get to ask them about what they're doing and I get to like dig into it and be like, do you want to like try our game and whatnot? I don't know. It's all really exciting to me. It's one of those things where like, I don't know why, not that I wish this, but like growing up, I was always like, it's so cool to be like, I hate people and they all suck. But as I get older, I'm like, no, I love them. They're so weird and cool and interesting, and I can't be that cynical, but that's the truth.
I love that. I am in my best days, and I love to hear you say that because I'm trying to continue to have that be in the mix, right? Like, I think that is the reason why you do this work. Is the reason why I love this work. Is like, it is this really interesting, just like needle into the human psyche in the coolest and sometimes not great ways, but most times kind of really cool ways. To be like, oh, you think about things in this way, and how does that work, and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of cool. Oh my goodness, Victoria, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm so happy that you got a chance to rock. Everybody at home, go get the book. Mastering Community Management, Chaos, Compassion, and Connections in Games by the one and only Victoria Tran. I just want to say again, thank you for being on the show. I want to wish you nothing but the most success. You continue to be one of my favorite people on this planet and one of the best folks in this space doing this work. I will be reading through this and I will be cheating and taking things. So people can be like, I'm using that. That's good. I'm using that. Oh, that's really good too. Thanks for that one, Victoria. Appreciate you. You'll get a random gift in the mail sometimes. Be like, thank you, thank you for helping me figure out how to not be ass at this job. You're the best. So
no, you're amazing. Don't even. I will fight you over this. You're amazing at your job.
I'm trying. Thanks to good folks like you who are giving us all the blueprint on how to do this job well. And giving us really good things to think about. So, Victoria, thank you again for being here on the show. Where can folks go cop the book? I know it's on Amazon, but where else can they find it?
Yeah, you can find it. Honestly, I'm not even gonna lie. I don't even know where you can find it half the time. If you go to victoriatran.com/book, like I have all the links there to all the Amazon. There's Bookshop, there's Routledge, which is like where you can buy it directly. But they distribute it to like a lot of different websites where you would normally buy your books. So whatever your region is,
you can get it at regional Amazon in the UK, Canada, Japan, Spain, Bookshop, Indigo, and Waterstones. You can cop the book there. I have it on my phone. It's on my Kindle. I was reading it before we got on the show, and I will buy a hard copy so I can have it on the mantle and be like, this is dope. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for rocking. Everybody at home, we're going to take a quick break and have a little bit more Spawn of Me where we wrap this bad boy up and talk about the goodies that are coming for you in the gaming space this week. So until then, take a break. Go watch this ad. We'll see you in a minute.
What if you could transform your body, level up your mind, and unleash your warrior spirit all by playing a role-playing game? Well, now you can with Infinite, the world's first science-backed fitness fantasy RPG where real-world progress becomes your power. Create your avatar based on your goals and level, then explore game modes like the Dungeon, Academy, and Sanctum using powerful tools and apps to forge real transformation. You ready to combine fitness and gaming to unlock your ultimate potential? Then visit fitnessfantasyrpg.com and use the code SpawnOnMe for 10% off your custom plan. Play Infinite and become the hero of your own fitness story.
All right, everybody, we're back. Again, that was fun. That was so much fun. I love talking to Victoria. I think her book is probably going to be the new Bible for a lot of folks who are looking to get into the space and maintain in this space. I always find a really good tidbit of information anytime we get a chance to go through it and get a chance to talk about this work, because you need people who are veterans who are teaching all of us who are not necessarily newbies, but are still working through our process of learning the best practices and good ways to really connect with community and ways to build on the art of community management. I think a lot of people don't understand that there is a lot of talent that it takes to do this work well. And I think, if you're going to learn from somebody, learn from Victoria, because she is continuously brilliant and dope. So make sure you go copy the book. The name of the book, again, is Mastering Community Management, Chaos, Compassion, and Connection in Games. You can get on Amazon, you can get a whole bunch of different places. We'll have links in the show notes to go grab it and go snag it. So massive love to her. And yeah, we're going to get up out of here for this episode. It was a lot of fun to be able to talk to her, and we have a lot of really dope interviews already in the can that are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're talking to folks about games around immigration. We're going to be talking about folks who are making really dope stuff out of the Cincinnati area. A lot of good stuff to be talking to you about, alongside, of course, discussing what news of the week is happening and games that are going to be dropping. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you subscribe to all the stuff that we do, and get up out of here for this episode and say peace to you all, because you are all the best. So we love you all. Much love to you all. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Be safe. Stay good. Wash your hands, wash your butt. And we'll see you all next week. Peace.